Hello, welcome. You're watching NewsX with me, Devika Chopra. Uttarakhand is all set to become the first state in the country to adopt the Uniform Civil Code, a move just a day after the inauguration of the 38th National Games and PM's visit to Dehradun. Uttarakhand Chief Minister Pushkar Singh Dhami will be launching the UCC portal of the state secretariat, and with this, the ruling BJP will make a start towards realizing the only poll promise that they haven't achieved so far. UCC remains the sole pending core Lok Sabha poll promise of the Bharatiya Janata Party, which has fulfilled the other two pledges. First was abrogation of Article 370 in Jammu and Kashmir, and the second was the construction of the Ram Mandir in Ayodhya. However, talking about the UCC, the Uniform Civil Code seeks to unify personal laws ensuring equality, gender justice and national integration. It aims to eliminate discrimination, especially against women, and promote social cohesion. However, critics do worry that it could infringe upon religious freedom and cultural diversity. The UCC is highlighted in the Indian Constitution as a step towards social justice. But what really is the way forward? How is it that Uttarakhand is going to achieve this promise? We take all of these conversations forward. I have with me on the broadcast Mr. I believe Manasvi Thapar is with us. I have with me Mr. K.V. Dhananjay, Senior Advocate, and Dr. Swati Jindal Garg, AOR of the Supreme Court, with us as well. Let me begin this conversation with Mr. K.V. Dhananjay. Mr. Dhananjay, bits and pieces of the Uniform Civil Code that is going to be implemented in Uttarakhand available online, and I'm sure you've had a moment to really go over what is it that Uttarakhand wants to offer. Your first thoughts, how is it that you think Uttarakhand will be able to really achieve the promises that are being made by the Chief Minister?
Well, there is some movement towards uniformity, but it's not in any real sense a uniform civil code. Also because uniform civil code may never really be feasible in a large and diverse country like India. But I think there are some good elements in that. But also it certainly is not enough. Now, one thing it does is to practically remove the personal law of marriage for Muslims and then to bring them under this law. Now, that might be commendable considering that there has been a reluctance on the part of the lawmakers to address bigamy amongst the Muslim community, and that reluctance has obviously been more or less corrected here. But having said that, the law does not go far enough. Now, you take the scheduled tribes. The scheduled tribes do have a significant, the scheduled tribes have been kept out of the Hindu Marriage Act of 1955. And progressives have always been saying that the scheduled tribes too deserve to be brought in under the marriage laws. But unfortunately, we don't have a central marriage law for the scheduled tribes. And it was expected that the Uttarakhand Civil Code, Uniform Civil Code Act would have done something towards that. But they also this law also specifically excludes scheduled tribes from the provisions of the Act, which means bigamy is permissible, within scheduled tribes. And we're not talking of scheduled tribes of the Northeast who, for constitutional reasons, might want to claim that they have some special status and the laws made for the mainland should not operate on them. Uttarakhand is, integral, or rather the central, it's in the center of India. So there really was no good, justification for keeping the scheduled tribes out. And there certainly would not have been a blowback. Like some would expect there would be, let's say, if the scheduled tribes in Nagaland or in Manipur were to be brought under the central laws in terms of personal laws. And the other aspect is a live-in relationship. Now, asking people who are going to enter into a live-in relationship or who have been in a live-in relationship for some time to register, that I think was unwarranted for two reasons. It's not practical at all. Because whoever is in a live-in relationship, should they later be sought to be prosecuted on the ground that they did not disclose the relationship, they will simply disown the relationship if the prosecution is going to be too much, or if they certainly want to go out of Uttarakhand and then carry on a family there. So that I think is somewhat damaging. And the live-in relationship is something that India is now witnessing in a way that we have to have a more drastic debate on how to recognize it. But this is not so much about recognizing it. This is so much about taking one or two instances of those, partners living in a live-in relationship, butchering each other, or, there have been these reports of a male member, or cutting off the body pieces of the female member and then storing it in a fridge and all those things. I think the lawmakers have taken that to the extreme. I mean, those gory visuals and images to the extreme. I think that part ought to have been omitted. And the succession part is drafted in a way that the true benefit of it will only be known as it starts operating. But at the end of the day, I think if one has to, on balance, say if this is a welcome step, because others are not even trying. Other states are not even trying at all, and even the center is not trying enough. So considering that conspectus, I think some positive things are certainly there in this law. It's a good beginning, and like all these things start with, this is a good beginning, and we don't need too drastic a law at the very beginning. I think this is good to start with. There certainly are negatives, and this is a law. I mean, this is not Bible, or this is not our Bhagavad Gita that you can't change anything. This is a law, and as a lawmaker, certainly will bear witness to what they will see in this law over the next 1 or 2 years. I'm very positive, and we could be hopeful that they will also make suitable amendments. But I think it's a good beginning.
Okay, all right. Bringing in Manasvi Thapar into the conversation as well. Advocate Manasvi Thapar, what are your thoughts as far as some of the aspects of the bill are concerned? When they talk about certain criminalization of certain marriage practices, it says that the bill has banned certain marriage practices such as nikah, halal or triple talaq without essentially naming them or naming a particular community. They say individuals are now entitled to remarry the divorced spouse without any preconditions, thereby eliminating a practice such as nikah halala. So, but how is that really different from what we have across the country today?
See, this particular implementation or the drafting of an act is a very good step in terms of the direction where BJP has been putting in its manifesto since last 27 years. But finally, a state unit has decided to do that. But central government, which has been putting this in the manifesto on national election, there is no considerable steps done on that particular front. Going forward, it's a good start. It's a beginning of 21st century wherein UCC should be implemented. I think 85% of the various surveys of the country, people have said that UCC has to be there. But the only problem what comes to the mind of people is that consultation process, taking all the stakeholders together. That has not ever happened, and that did not even happen during the Uttarakhand UCC drafting. So while we draft a policy, the idea is to take all the stakeholders together. Now, when the reason of excluding the scheduled tribes in the Uttarakhand UCC is unknown, is unexplained. So that is something you have to give a clarity. Having said that, when Goa, the Portuguese civil code has been there since 1897, Congress could not implement it. People believed in BJP that they would do that. A considerable step from the central government should have been done, but that is not there. So when the UCC is going to see a final light pan-India, we as of now don't have any certainty in 2025 while we are speaking it. Yes, it's a good step, but there are many things more to be done on that. But that can only be done when we have all the stakeholders together, when we have a JPC has to be formed for UCC, taking everyone together. The problem, what we see is that we don't take people who are the right stakeholders together, and that's why the criticism and arguments are going to be there. Law is ever evolving, so you cannot have a rigid law. You have to evolve with time, and I think the right time for UCC is now. What we have seen systematically is just before the election, there would be a committee which would be formed, and the UCC buzz would be there in all the elections. If you track 2019 election, if you track 2024 election, the buzz of UCC was there that UCC will see a light finally. But in last 10 years, we have not seen actual groundwork on UCC by the central government. If we have to congratulate the state government, yes, we are on its right, and the state government of Uttarakhand is in all proprietary, has done a credible work. But will that credible work will be replicated at pan-India level? That's still a question mark. Having said that, I'm coming back to the same point which Mr. Dhananjay also raised. that what is the reason of excluding the scheduled tribes? So how is that a UCC? So this is going to be a question. Is it something which is going to have an amendment in the future? Are we waiting for the law to correct its own course? So law is open, and it is okay to have that loopholes to be there, or not a loophole to be there, but it's evolutionary. But the reasoning has to be there. That debate purpose should have been solved, that this is the reason we are excluding it. That has not happened in the assembly of Uttarakhand. So these are some points of loopholes. But having said that, at a larger perspective on UCC, I think Uttarakhand government is the only government which is actually now going to have a light for UCC. Other governments during the election time, be it Gujarat, be it Maharashtra, in their state manifestos have said that BJP-led manifestos have said that they will be coming up with UCC, but no considerable work has been done by any state. It is only the Uttarakhand, so we have to congratulate the cabinet, the chief minister of Uttarakhand, that they have actually shown way forward towards UCC for other states to follow, and for the central government for sure.
Okay, all right. I want to bring in Dr. Swati Jindal Garg into the conversation as well. Dr. Swati Garg, your thoughts on the Uttarakhand UCC?
See, as far as I'm concerned, whenever you leave an exception out of everyone else, the uniformity, escapes you. The implementation of the UCC, it can be said to be a major achievement for the BJP-led government in Uttarakhand. UCC actually has been on their agenda for a long time now. One of their primary, it was a star agenda at that time. And the only one practically that has not been fulfilled till now. So Uttarakhand's move to implement it basically sets a precedent for other BJP-ruled states. Now, this development, like we can say, is just coming ahead of the Silver Jubilee celebration of Uttarakhand's own statehood, which is coming up in 2025. So it is a significant process for the state. At the same time, having these different religious laws for different religions has been a bone of contention for the legal system for a long time in India. Now, India is known for its diversity. At the same time, it's never a good idea for different religions to have different escape routes. The fact that the UCC has done away with the concept of halala is to be commended. Then the promise to implement the UCC, which was, like I said, one of the key commitments made by the BJP during their 2022 assembly elections. Now, because of their resounding victory in these elections, it has given a mandate to push for this change. And I think Uttarakhand is just the first in the line. And Minister Dhami has said that the UCC implementation would mark a step forward for making India a more developed, organized, and harmonious nation in accordance with the vision of the broader policy of Prime Minister Modi. I think that is practically, that is true in that sense, that once we see how UCC develops in Uttarakhand, it can be a sort of a testing board for the rest of the country. However, like both the speakers before me has said, I do not understand the logic for not including the scheduled tribes in this uniformity. And can we even call it a uniform civil code if one of the larger chunks being Uttarakhand, where there is a lot of population for scheduled tribes, if they have been excluded, can it really be called as a uniform code to begin with?
Okay, so let me take that question with Neha Joshi. Neha Joshi, one major question that is arising in everyone's mind is whether the uniform civil code that is going to be implemented in Uttarakhand is uniform truly because of the exclusion of scheduled tribes from it. How does the BJP explain that decision?
Hi, good evening, everyone. So first of all, before I answer your question, Mr. Thapar made a point here that, he was worried about the consultation process. Since the time that the UCC committee was formed under Justice Ranjana Desai, over 150 physical meetings were held with different groups. The first meeting, in fact, was held in tribal-dominated Mana village, which is right at the border of India and Nepal. Then the subcommittees held over 200 meetings. So, the consultation process lasted for over 2 years, and multiple meetings with different groups, community groups, religious groups were done across the state of Uttarakhand. Now coming to the point of excluding the scheduled tribes. Now 2.9% of Uttarakhand is ST, like in terms of the population. And we know that the scheduled tribe communities have a very unique way of life. And in the widespread consultations that were held across the states, even though the younger generation in the scheduled tribe communities leaned more towards UCC, however, in the interest of preserving those unique traditions, because if you ask me, scheduled tribes are the real minorities in this country, and they need to be protected. The cultural traditions, the uniqueness, they need to be protected, and I think that is the reason why the scheduled tribes have been left out of the UCC. However, I think, like what Mr. Thapar said, this is the law evolves, and there is always room for amendments and inclusions. So going forward, if the government feels the need, they can always be included. But I think when I look at it from the view of how unique these scheduled tribes are, and how different they are from the rest of the society, and how that lends a very different nature to their altogether community. I think it's important that these special minorities, the real minorities, are protected at all costs.
Okay, all right. But at the same time, Neha Joshi, what really are the biggest hurdles that Uttarakhand government is perhaps anticipating at this point in time towards the implementation of UCC? How is the government really explaining some of the worries that people have that a UCC does or could possibly infringe on religious rights?
So for the past year, ever since the first there was a draft that was put on the table. It was put out in the public domain. There were a lot of discussions. Then the cabinet approved it. But there have been multiple milestones in this journey of the UCC finally becoming a reality. And during the course of the past 1 year, there have been multiple engagements by the government and by the committee with different stakeholders. And as far as I see, we do not see any problem in the government will face in implementation. As far as the religious angle is concerned, I think there is a widespread agreement that the UCC, more than anything else, has to do with gender justice. And with over 50% of Uttarakhand's population being women, there has been such great support that women have come out in favor of the UCC, that it's almost become a movement. So as far as I can see, as a woman, as a resident of Uttarakhand, I do not see there being any problem. There have been small sections, of course, of the society who, for their political benefit, the Congress has been saying every few months they come up with this angle of that the UCC is brought in before election. They say it's useless, it's not going to have any real impact, and then they give out statements like the government is bringing the UCC just in time of the elections to influence the elections, which are contradictory statements to me. Because if you think it's not going to change anything, why are you worried? The point of the matter is that the UCC was long overdue. I think the UCC should be a reality in the country, and Prime Minister has indicated at multiple occasions. In fact, the Prime Minister is going to be in Uttarakhand on the 28th, inaugurating the National Games in Uttarakhand, and we are all looking at, we're all thinking that his speech there might have an indication of what it's going to be the way forward for the UCC, and if we are going to see that implemented across the country. And the Uttarakhand UCC, in fact, is going to be a model on which the larger UCC is going to be based on.
Okay. Let me bring back KV Dhananjay into the conversation. KV Dhananjay, do you feel that, yes, while it is the next step or the way forward, but do you think the future of UCC lies in all states coming up with their own versions, or will we ever be able to see some sort of an act that can be implemented across India?
Well, it has to be a federal or a national or a central law. You can't have patchwork of state laws like this, because eventually it's going to lead to trouble. The Uttarakhand law says it applies to every person who is resident in Uttarakhand, and also a person who is a resident of Uttarakhand but then resides elsewhere. Now just imagine 2 years down the line, you have a similar law in Kerala. When I say similar, I mean a law that governs marriages of all different faiths and religions, but then has different rules for registration. So you have a couple where one is resident of Uttarakhand, the other one is resident of Kerala. What happens in a situation like that, when particularly the laws have some amount of mutual contradictions? So in order to tide over that scenario, we would eventually want a central law. But then a central law has more of why would anybody, promise something today and if they want to, if they are only going to deliver it 10 years later, 12 years later? And on the aspect of consultation, there is something to be said for these personal law reformation. If let's say you want to abolish bigamy amongst a community where it's somewhat, which is prone to bigamy, if you start consulting and asking with people, they are going to say, "Oh no, this is our tradition. This is part of our culture. We want this." So when it comes to reformation of personal laws, consultation, of course, is important. It's also equally important to know that someone's ideas of progressiveness is eventually going to overpower lack of, consensus. So consultation, of course, is important, but it's important to know that if somebody feels strongly that we need personal reformation and reforms is required in this country. We came out with the Hindu Marriage Act of 1955 and the various Hindu Succession Act of 1956 and the other similar laws that came out in those 1950s and 60s. We are in 2024 and something happened, all these reforms started sometime after 1970s. Why? And we've been paying a price for that. Within the Muslim community, it's a fact that education levels have dipped, and one of the factors attributed for that one is the prevalence of bigamy, though not it was like 100 years ago. When a man can have more than one wife, and when they don't have the means to support many children, the children don't receive suitable education, they don't get enough nutrition because it's expensive to buy food for everybody. There is going to be a problem. So we have not kept up with the pace of reforms that would have been necessary considering the spate of reforms we came out with in the 1950s and 60s. And the other aspect that we also must remember is in some areas we never really will see uniform reformation or uniform civil law at all. You take the concept of co-parcenary property. Hindus have evolved very differently culturally when it comes to keeping of property. In Hinduism, particularly the Mitakshara school of law, which applies all over India, except West Bengal and Kerala, where they follow the Dayabhaga, where women have greater rights to properties. In the Mitakshara school of law, the co-parcenary property is the one where the income tax law considers exemption for that, and that's a law wherein if a grandfather turns over his property to your father, then your father is holding it in trust for every other member of the family. Your father simply can't write a will to bequeath all of that wealth to your maid. But that would not be the case in case of Christianity. In case of Christianity, property on succession is held as an absolute owner. So a father in Christian law can simply write a will to give away all the property to a neighbor or to somebody who meets up in the morning walk. So I don't think uniformity would be possible there, or for that matter, it's even desirable because culturally, it's important to recognize. And there will be a furor. If you were to say that you are going to abolish the concept of co-parcenary property, there will be a furor and then opposition, sometimes even violent within the Hindu community, because culturally, we believe this protects, the notion of a father holding ancestral property in trust for every member of the family, and then who does not have the freedom to deal with it as if it were his personal or absolute property. That's been there with the Hindu fold for the last 3,000 years, and I don't think we could introduce or extend that to the Mohammedans or to the Christians, for whom it's an alien concept. So we are not going to have uniformity in that area, and it's important to recognize that. But we could have uniformity in the area of marriages. But unfortunately, and there are some aspects of the law which I do not know why those things crept in. If you look at the Uttarakhand legislation that we are discussing here, if a married person wants to seek divorce, then there is one clause where the additional ground for divorce is if the husband has been found guilty of rape or unnatural intercourse. Now, this could lead to some kind of a trouble, because there certainly could be women who go before the court and say that they've been raped. I mean, married women saying that the married woman has been raped by her husband.
Okay.
And that clause, unfortunately, would have been better to refine it, because as the law stands in this country, in rest of the India, marital rape is not yet recognized. But I do not know if that kind of language is inadvertently crept in, and it's an important area that also have been looked into
No,
more
no,
closely.
pertinent point that you've raised. Let me bring it up with Neha Joshi. Neha Joshi, you've heard what KV Dhananjay's apprehensions are as far as marital rape is concerned. How does the BJP explain that?
Hi. So I think, like Mr. Dhananjay said, that, I think the need for a more progressive law is something that everyone recognizes. And I think even the issue of marital rape, I will confess that I haven't read this particular clause, and I haven't read this particular line about the issue of marital rape being a part of this, the UCC, and I'll have to go back and read about this a little more to be able to answer the question effectively. But just on the merit of what Mr. Dhananjay is saying, I think if marital rape is something that is being discussed and acknowledged in the UCC, I think it is a step forward. I know that there's an ongoing debate about this, and this is something that the courts also haven't had a lot of clarity on. But I think as far as from the point of view of being a woman is concerned, I think it is a step forward if this is something that's being discussed. Of course, I think that there is that apprehension of how the courts are going to be dealing with issues like this. But again, like I said, I think the committee would have thought about this, and I think it's very interesting because I'm surprised that this is something that I haven't read about, and it's something that's very, very important. So, Devika, you'll have to forgive me that I won't be able to answer.
It doesn't as much as say marital rape. That word has not been used, but it says women will have special rights to seek divorce under the bill only under two circumstances: if the husband has been found guilty of rape or any kind of unnatural sexual offence, and if the husband has more than one wife. So that's what it currently says. But let me bring in Manasvi Thapar back into the conversation. Manasvi Thapar, is the Uttarakhand UCC really laying the groundwork for a national UCC, or do you also feel that the way forward perhaps for India will be several states now making their own attempts at it? And is that true then to the promise that was made to the nation as a whole?
See, laws any time in any country has to be nationalistic. Laws cannot be political in nature. When you make a law, you have to think of the nation at the larger point. And in terms of UCC, you also have to protect your own state culture and state ethnic groups and everything that has to be taken care of. But what comes to the mind is that you cannot make laws in haste and in terms of getting some political brownie points. Having said that, the mandate for UCC is there since last 20 years. It should have been done, I think, in early 1990s. No government took that charge. Everyone discussed about it, but nothing considerable happened. The more people trusted BJP in the last 10 years, that some considerable steps would have been taken. As of now, nothing has happened. So that is something BJP has been able to fulfill other things which they had promised. UCC is the last leg of the promises which they have been vouching for since many years. So I believe they should have that mandate from the people which they already have. The mandate should come from their political will, which as of now is not seen. Maybe because of 240 seats or something, that's why in 2024, 2025, that is not the concentration. But that mandate has to come from BJP as a central political force with the largest number of seats and being in the center. And a specialized committee has to be formulated, if not JPC, taking all the stakeholders together. Only a central law can give clarity and take the country forward in terms of personal laws are concerned. If every state starts their own UCC, it is only going to complicate the previous enactments which we had. We cannot have 29 personal laws or personal UCC. That is going to create lots of confusion between the judges, between the judiciary, between the people of our country. So you have to have a central UCC. You cannot have a state-wise UCC. Yes, there could be state amendments to that, but a central UCC is the mandate which the country is looking forward, and it is only the BJP which can do it. Why? Because it is the promise of the BJP, it is the mandate which BJP has got, and it is the duty of BJP which they should fulfill immediately as possible, but not a hasty law. If it is going to take next few years, it is okay, but it should not be a hasty law. Yes, law is evolving, but we don't want a hasty law which would have its own multiple loopholes. A constructive law which takes our country forward and we move ahead as a country. Criticisms are always going to be there, but we try to reduce as many loopholes as possible. That should be the idea for BJP to draft UCC. But as of now, nothing on ground has been done by the central government, or we are not told about it, or we are not informed about it. But as of now, it looks like there's no steps towards UCC from the central government. We have to congratulate Uttarakhand government for showing the way for UCC for the central government. But states, I don't feel states would take that mandate any forward, because states have their different agendas, different political aspirations. So I don't think this would be a benchmark or a starting point for other states to follow, because for various other reasons, like Delhi is not coming up with UCC, it's already with election. So in 2025, I am not going any news from state governments to form UCC, because that mandate or that will is not there as of now from the state leaderships, from the chief minister sides, or any state political units of any political party.
Okay, all right. I've run out of time, but I thank all of our guests for joining us on the broadcast. Of course, more on this will continue tomorrow when Uttarakhand actually does implement the UCC. With that, a very short break.